Hello everyone, welcome to Crack Academy. Now, this is the first lecture, obviously. In the last lecture, we discussed in detail about the orientation, first of all, that what needs to be done if you are going to start your modern history for civil service examination. Now, once that is done, now in this lecture, we are going to discuss that what really happened. Okay, so where the modern history starts with the demise of Aurangzeb. We have already discussed those things in the lecture number 1. Here we'll start and we'll discuss about the decline of the Mughal Empire. Okay, the decline of the Mughal Empire. That's where we are going to start from. So what exactly we are going to cover in this lecture? Let me tell you here itself. Okay, so as I told you initially in the first lecture that our focus will be more on the, instead of the king to king, instead of Badshah to Badshah, our focus will be more on making you understand what was going with the people on the ground in those times. Okay, what was their situation, what was happening with them. That is the focus. So Indian subcontinent in 1707. Okay, what was happening? Okay, we'll be talking about administrative and economic situation of the empire. Okay, what was, when we are talking about 1707, we'll also cover the section in 816, 90, 1700, and before starting anything else, I'll let you know the very definition of what is the main system of revenue collection in Mughal Empire, what was happening there, what was good, what was bad, everything. Okay, so we'll be doing that, administrative and economic situation of empire. We'll be talking about Bahadur Shah first, political policy initiatives, phase of instabilities. We'll be talking about after Aurangzeb, the rulers who came into power were called as later Mughals. So we'll be discussing about them. Okay, and I'll give you a basic skim of the Mughal Empire also, first of all, before starting anything else. Incapable rulers, Jahandar Shah, Farrukh Shiar, these were basically called as incapable rulers. What were their reasoning for calling these rulers to be incapable? What policy initiatives were taken during their reign? That is going to be important. Instead of just, okay, they were incapable. Okay, no, that is not how it works. We'll be focusing specifically on that what was policy initiative taken during their reign, who actually took the policy, and what really happened. So we'll be doing that. Policy of Zulfikar Khan, Sayyid brothers. These were basically the prime ministers of Jahandar Shah and Farrukh Shiar respectively. So we'll be discussing because ultimately they were the one who were taking the policy decisions on the ground. Okay. Reign of Muhammad Shah Rangila, the ruler who came into power in 1720. Okay, after Farrukh Shiar was killed. What he did? He is considered as one of the person. He was also considered incapable, obviously, but he somehow managed to stay in power till 1748. So if he was incapable, how he was able to maintain himself in power for 28 years? We'll be focusing on that. That is very important because that is also one of the reasons for disintegration of the Mughal Empire. He allowed the local regional rulers to become big. Okay, and that is something we have to focus. Disintegration of the empire started from here onwards. Foreign invasion after this started. Nadir Shah, Ahmad Shah Abdali. You might have heard by now. Okay, there were foreign invasions. For example, Nadir Shah's invasion of 1739 and Ahmad Shah Abdali's various raid. Okay, Ahmad Shah Abdali didn't raided India for the very one time in 1761. It was not only that he came and fought in Panipat in 1761. No. Between 1748 and 1768, Ahmad Shah Abdali raided India 8 times. And back then, what was India? India was not a constant entity as it is now. Back then, any raid in which the Afghans or Iranian or anyone from northwest actually crossed the Indus River, Sindhu Nadi. If they crossed Indus River and came on this side, it was considered that they have invaded India. They have raided India. Okay, so he did that 8 times, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 8 times. And in the 5th raid, the Battle of Panipat happened. So even after that, he continued to raid the Indian territories in 63, 67. Okay, so we'll be discussing those things. And finally, I'll be giving you an outline in a summarization way that what were the effectively causes for the decline of Mughal Empire. Its consequences are simple. You already know that the main consequence, there were twofold consequences of decline of Mughal Empire. The first one is there was a power void and various regional powers evolved. The second one was ultimately the Britishers conquest India. Okay, so the consequences are, we will go into consequences because the whole modern history starts with the consequences of decline of Mughal Empire. But before that, that summarization of all the causes, that is essential, and will provide you that thing. Okay, so that has to be done in this lecture. Let's start with the lecture. Now you can see there are two maps on the screen. Okay, the left one is the map of India under Aurangzeb. Okay, now you can see, except deep down south, okay, extreme deep south, except that region, everything else was in the control of the Mughal Empire. Was in the control of Mughal Empire. Okay, now on the right you can see that the Marathas are there. Okay, this region is under the Maratha, the yellow region. The green region is the Nizam Shahi. The Mughals have been reduced to smaller region around Delhi. There's separate Awadh, and the pinkish region or peach region is basically the region under the British. So what just happened, that within 60 years, the almighty Mughal Empire was reduced to a mere small regional power in and around Delhi. That is the whole story of disintegration of Mughal Empire and decline of the Mughal Empire, whatever suits you can call it. It's basically the same thing. Fine. So let's begin, and let me tell you what really happened. How the Mughal Empire went from this to this here. Okay, that is something we have to focus. So before anything else, let's start with the basic definition, that in the Mughal Empire, okay, there are 4 pillars of Mughal Empire, and not only Mughal Empire, any government, any country, anywhere in the world, any time of the world, from the ancient times till the modern times, there are 4 foundational things on which any country, any empire, any sultanate, whatever you want to call it, any system runs. Okay, the military, because security is the most essential thing. Okay, before security nothing else comes. Okay, so the military, the economy, the administration, and the culture. The military, the economy, the administration, and the culture. Okay, the 4 foundational things. Okay, so Mughals had their military, their economic system, their administration, and culture. So we need to have a basic understanding of these 4 foundational values, foundational pillars, before going into any deep dive or any understanding that what led to this decline. Decline have taken place, so it must be that some degradation of these foundational pillars must have happened. So what degradation happened, and on what level? What were the economic reasonings? What were the military reasons? Where Mughals lagged? What really happened? Okay, so we have to talk about the Mughal Empire in 1777, issues within the military, issues within economy, issue within administration, issues within the nobility because they were part of the bureaucracy, and issues within the society. Okay, each one of it has to be discussed. Now, let me discuss each one of you for you in detail. Okay, and then we'll move forward. So first we'll start with the issues within the military. Okay. Now, when we are going to discuss about the issues in the military, we need to understand that how Mughal military and Mughal economy was very much connected, interconnected. Why it's so? Because of a system called as Mansabdari system, and we'll be discussing the Mansabdari system also here itself. So let me discuss the Mansabdari system for you guys here. Fine. This was the Mughal revenue system, basic foundational Mughal revenue system, and this understanding of this is very important. So right now, how the revenue government, how revenue is collected by the government? Okay, either through GST or there is an income tax department. Okay, direct indirect taxes are collected that way. But back in the day, there was no concept of this direct indirect taxes. Okay, and most of the revenue was collected from the agriculturists, from the farmers, in the form of some of their product. Okay, the surplus which they generated, the part of their surplus was taken as the revenue. Now, back in the day, in the Mughal times, what the Mughal Badshah or Mughal administration used to do is they used to make Mansabdars. Okay, and who were these Mansabdars? Mansabdars were the people who were given responsibility, or I should just add Mansabdar. These were people who were given responsibility, and what was their responsibility? Their responsibility was very simple, very easy, and that is that they have to collect the revenue from a defined piece of land. Okay, from a defined designated piece of land, they have to, all the peasants, all the farmers who were living and growing in agricultural product, farming products in that piece of land, they have to collect revenue from them. Now that revenue which they collected, okay, they have to keep a part of that revenue for themselves and not for their personal self. They have to keep a part of that revenue for themselves, and through this money they have to maintain armed forces, they have to maintain military. Okay, and what this military consisted of? Cavalry and infantrymen. Cavalry and infantrymen. Okay, they consisted of cavalry and infantrymen. Cool, got it? Consisted of cavalry and infantrymen. These Mansabdar, how many cavalry and how many infantrymen has to be maintained by them was decided by their rank. Their rank used to be called as their Jat. Now suppose, and this used to be, these Jat used to vary between 10 and 5,000 in the times of Akbar, and 10 and 7,500 in the times of Aurangzeb. For example, if there is a Mansabdar whose Jat is 10, okay, so that means that the revenue which he is collecting, he has to keep a part of the revenue and use it to maintain 10 cavalrymen. Now if you are maintaining 10 cavalrymen, then you have to maintain 20 horses. That was a rule that on every cavalryman, okay, har ghosawar pe you have to maintain 2 horses. So to feed them, to keep them for their salary and everything, that money was used. The one who has a rank of 7,500, they used to maintain 7,500 cavalrymen and 15,000 horses, and that's how it works. Okay, so Jat actually varied between 10 and 7,500 in the times of Aurangzeb. Cool, understood, easy. Now if this much is decided, now they have to give rest of the money. After keeping one part for maintaining this, they have to give rest of the money they have collected to the Mughal Toshkhana. So some money goes in this and the rest goes to Mughal Toshkhana, that is Mughal treasury. Okay, now this is the basics of Mansabdari system. So you can see that through this Mansabdari system, the economy and military of the Mughal Empire was intertwined. The economy and military of Mughal Empire was intertwined. Okay, now so economy and military has been discussed. What was going on? I am not still discussing. अभी issues discuss करते हैं. पहले basics देख लीजिए आप. We'll just look at the basics first of all, and then we'll move to the details. Okay. Now issues. इसके बाद इसमें what are the issues within military and administration? Obviously, what happens? Corruption happens. How corruption happened? Corruption happened in the sense that sometimes Mansabdar started reporting lesser of a revenue than what they actually collected. Sometimes, since the war was not taking for a very long period, they started maintaining lesser number of cavalrymen than what they were united to through their Jat, okay, through their rank. So corruption started happening on the Mansabdar level. Suppose it was told that okay, there has certain type of improvement has to be brought in, new quality of horse have to be imported, new shields, new swords have to be imported. Now the Mansabdars thought like, okay, fine, anyway war is not going to happen, why to invest so much money, just pocket the money. So the army kind of became bit of lackluster. The technical advancement started reducing. okay, and they also got corrupted over the period of time. Okay, so these was standard difficulties in the Mansabdari system. There are other issues on the economic front beyond Mansabdari that I will discuss. Okay, what are the other issues? We'll come to it. First of all, understood this much. The other, and this was in the way military and economic connected. Now, other issue at the economic level, what you need to understand here is on the economic level was for the first time around 1680s and 1690, that is the later part of the 17th century, when Aurangzeb was the king, Aurangzeb was the Badshah. For the very first time, the overall population of Mughal Empire crossed 150 million, that is 15 crore. Crossed 15 crore. Now, when the population crossed 15 crore, agriculture as a profitable industry didn't existed. Agriculture initially was very profitable, okay, because it was the main source of revenue. Always remember that back in the 17th and even the 16th and the 17th century, agriculture was the main industry. Okay, agriculture was the main industry. Okay, now at this time by 1680, 1690, when the population started getting a boost all of a sudden, okay, then agriculture, the surplus of the agriculture, which was basically creating the profit, which was going in the form of revenue to the Mughal Empire, that didn't existed. If the people are not able to fulfill their minimum requirements, they are not able to get meal for 2 times, how the hell they are going to pay extra revenue? So the overall revenue will reduce. So because of the increased population, the surplus of farming reduced. The surplus of farming reduced. Okay, got it? Fine. So surplus of farming reduced. Now, when the surplus of farming reduced, then there will be difficulties. The overall revenue will reduce. Okay, overall revenue will reduce. Fine. Now, another issue was there. In this period only, in 1680s, 1690s, you will see that Aurangzeb started trying to take over more and more territories. More and more territories in the sense that he started moving towards Deccan. And we'll talk about it in detail. Let me first show if the slides are available for that. So, okay, I have completed, yeah. The Ijaradari system is still remember. I'll explain that. Just give me a moment. So first, let me go through the economy section in the sense, Aurangzeb, before becoming Badshah, and this is just considered this is a part of a story. Before becoming the king, the Badshah of Mughal Empire in 1658, Aurangzeb was the Mughal governor of Deccan. Okay. And then only he kind of planned that if he get an opportunity, he will take over the territory, because Mughals were not present below the Deccan region, below all the Deccan region and below whatever the southern part of India was not under the control of the Mughals, even till Shah Jahan was in power. Okay, even while Chhatrapati Shivaji was alive, okay, till 1680, Aurangzeb kept himself holded back and didn't attack too much into the Deccan region. But once Shivaji passed away in 1680, okay, Aurangzeb got bit active, and after 1684-85, when there was a whole another issue, when they got to know that Aurangzeb's son actually was getting help from Sambhaji, who was Shivaji's son, and Aurangzeb's sons actually declared himself to be the real Badshah of Mughal Empire and tried to dethrone his own father. So the war started because Aurangzeb wanted to bring back his son and make sure that he was not removed from power. But while doing all this, what happened? The whole battle evolved into a Mughal-Maratha struggle. Mughal-Maratha struggle. Now, because of this Mughal-Maratha struggle, and this Mughal-Maratha struggle lasted between 1680 and 1707. Mughal Maratha struggle lasted between 1680 and 1707 in a way. Okay, and I'll explain how it ended in 1707 with the demise of Aurangzeb only. Okay, so because of this Mughal Maratha struggle, a huge amount of resources, economic resources, were now Mughal. Because of this, the Mughal economic resources were transferred to Deccan. Obviously, when you have to fight a war, you have to stretch your military, you have to stretch your resources. Everything has to be transferred to that region where war is taking place. So that happened. So this further impacted the economy of the Mughals. Fine. Okay, come. Now, these were some of the problems of the military and economy, and I'll give you a few more perspective in the coming slide. Now, on the administration level and the military level. So, in this period only, you will see that since Mughal Badshah Aurangzeb was too much involved in the affairs of the Deccan, he was trying to take over Deccan so much so that he shifted by 1685-86. He shifted to a place in Deccan which was now called as Aurangabad, and then later recently it has been renamed to Sambhajinagar. Okay, because Aurangzeb actually arrested Sambhaji's wife and Sambhaji's son Sahu. Sambhaji was hanged in 1689, and his 1689 he was hanged, and his wife and son were actually shifted to Delhi. They were imprisoned in the Mughal court. Now, recently it has happened. Okay, so you can always remember these things do happen. That the place, okay, the Aurangabad has been renamed as Sambhajinagar. So the people who have been doing these things, okay, the politicians, they have a basic idea of history. Okay, so you are aspiring for becoming an administrator, you should also have these ideas. Okay, so what happened on the administration level? Since Aurangzeb shifted to Aurangabad, that place was not called as Aurangabad initially. Since Aurangzeb shifted, it started being called as Aurangabad after him. So he shifted in Deccan. So there was a power void in Delhi, and when the king leaves too much of his capital, when the king stays too much out of his capital, impact is very easily visible on the capital, and that is what happened. Okay, so administration wise, the problem started developing. More corruption started happening. Problem in nobility also started happening. Now, what was the problem in nobility in this administration? And nobility problem was interlinked. And let me explain you what happened. Problem in the nobility. Okay, so Mughals were originally not Indians. Everyone must be knowing this. Okay, Mughal court. Mughals were actually from the region of Fargana. Okay, up in the north. So, in the Mughal court, over the period, the Mughals, Babur was for the time being was stationed also in Afghanistan. Then you get to know that Humayun, okay, for a time being also spent a lot of time of his life in Iran. So he brought a lot of people from Iran also. Okay, and then Akbar gave a lot of opportunities to the native people, the Hindustanis. Okay. So in the Mughal court, there were people from all the places. Okay, there were Afghans, okay, Afghanis. Okay, there were people of Turkish origin, so Turani. Okay, there were people from Iran, Persia, so Irani. Okay, there were people who were native Indians who have converted to Islam. Okay, so Hindustani. Okay, and there were also people from Central Asia, so Uzbeki. Okay, so you can directly see that so many different factions were there among the nobility also. Okay, the Afghani, Turani, Irani, Hindustani and Uzbeki. if there are so many factions, okay, surely there is going to be some issues and some difficulties. Surely there are going to be certain issues and certain difficulties. Okay, they are going to bicker among each other, they are going to fight among each other, there will be crisis, and the only solution is, if the king is there, he can resolve these issues. Now the king was not there anymore, so there will be difficulties. And that is what is going to happen after this. Okay, since the king was absent, he was in Aurangabad, these people started concocting plans, okay, conspiring against each other, and this in the long run declined the whole empire. Okay, so that happened. Now, that was the problem in nobility. What was the problem in society? Somewhere around 1670, remember, or late 1670s, when Aurangzeb for the first time Aurangzeb found out that he was in a difficult economic situation. What he did? He immediately imposed jizya. Jizya was a tax which was imposed on the non-Muslims. Now, this text was first imposed by Qasim's time, and that happened in Sindh, okay, 8th century AD, in the 8th century. But the problem is, back in the day, they used to impose this tax on the people, saying this, that those who are Muslim are already paying zakat. Those who are Muslim are already participating, because all their wars used to be considered jihad. Since all the wars are considered jihad, only the Muslims were allowed to participate in it. So they said, since you are not participating in war on the behalf of the state, and you are also not paying zakat, there should be equal taxation of you also, and that's where jizya came in the 8th century. The problem was, later on, even though the non-Muslims were also made to participate in the war, and the revenue system became normalized. So zakat was moved into different section for Muslim subjects of the state, but still the jizya continued to be imposed on the non-Muslims. Okay, Akbar removed jizya in 1563. Okay, from the non-Muslims. Okay, so therefore you don't have to pay tax for just being non-Muslim, first of all. But Aurangzeb reintroduced in the 1670s. Okay, so now the majority population was still not non-Muslim. Okay, I'm not using the specific word Hindu here, because back in the medieval times also, by 1670s, 1680s also, this Hindu as a concept was not acceptable everywhere. Okay, people were following Sanatani Dharma, people were also following many of the different sects of Sanatani Dharma. Okay, as such, Hindu was not a word as a religion. Okay, back in those times. So majority population was frustrated, okay, by this action, by reimposition of a tax which was removed by Akbar in 1563. Okay, now the next thing he did, along with jizya, he also reimposed Tirth Yatra Mahsul. Tirth Yatra Mahsul. Now, what is this Tirth Yatra Mahsul? Tirth Yatra Mahsul is something which is also called as pilgrimage tax. Okay, so all those people who used to do idol worship, okay, that is Buddha Puja, okay, idol worship, they had to pay a separate kind of tax called as pilgrimage tax. Now, obviously, you need to understand that who will end up paying this tax. Okay, the non-Muslims. Okay, they are only the idol worshippers. So again, the majority community. So because of these of the taxes which were imposed on the religious lines, this particularly increased the wedge between the two communities, the Hindu community and the Muslim community, and that you will see that further created difficulties in the society. Okay, so by this time you can see how, because of the economic reasonings, okay, ultimately all the problems are getting increased. Even Aurangzeb in the 1660s and early 1660s, he was not that orthodox. It was with the time his orthodox nature, his conservative nature further grown on him. Okay, and that you have to keep in mind. Now let's move forward. So I explained the Mansabdari system already. Ijaradari system I have to explain. This is another kind of revenue system which you need to have an understanding if you want to do this section. Now let me explain this thing, Ijaradari system, and let me explain it on a new slide only. So what is Ijaradari system? So I explained you the Mughal revenue system called as Mansabdari. Okay, so what is Ijaradari? Now Mughal revenue system from the time of Akbar himself had a lot of different methodology. Mansabdari was one of the way of collecting revenue. Another way of collecting revenue was Ijaradari system. Now, how it was different? Ijaradar was kind of a contractual worker. Okay, so instead of Mansabdar, who was a military senior officer, okay, who obviously is far responsible in far more ways, because he's also have military to maintain. Ijaradar was a contractual worker in a way, because what he used to do, the system stated that suppose there is a plot of land, okay, of 100 acre, 10 acre by 10 acre, okay, and there are 4 or 5 people, Mr. A, Mr. B, Mr. C and Mr. D. Now Mr. A said that I will collect like 1 lakh rupee over the period of 1 year from this piece of land. Okay, 1 lakh rupee. Mr. B said I'll be able to collect 1.2 lakh rupee. Mr. C said I'll be able to collect 90,000 rupees. And Mr. D said I'll be able to collect 1.3 lakh rupees. Okay, so bidding will start. And through this bidding process, the government will decide, okay, fine, if Mr. D is able to collect 1.3 lakh rupee, let Mr. D have this land for a year time and he will submit to the government, the Mughal Suba, 1.3 lakh rupees. But effectively, actually, the land's capability was 1 lakh rupee only. Okay, if in actual terms someone will calculate, they will find that it was actually possible just to collect 1 lakh rupee, not more than that, in the best of the situation. Now, Mr. D has assured 1.3 lakh rupees. Now, if he is going to pay 1.3 lakh rupee to the government, surely he is going to at least have 1.6 lakh rupee so that he can also make a margin for himself. Now, if the maximum capacity of the land revenue is going to be 1 lakh rupee, how the hell he is going to generate 1.6 lakh? There is only one simple way, by exploiting the workers. Okay, exploiting the workers, asking more money than what should be legitimate. Okay, so these methods, okay, Ijaradari method was more of a bidding method, and there will be use of this. I will be explaining you when we will be discussing about Jahandar Shahs and other people who reintroduced this thing. This Ijaradari system was there in the books of the Mughal Empire from the 16th century, from the time of Akbar, but it was never used. It was there in the books, but it was never used. Understood? It was there in the books, but it was never used. Okay. Mughals understood that there is a problem in this. They understood very well what will happen, and therefore they never used it. Okay, but it was there in the books that it could be used in the most difficult situations. Fine. Just keep this thing in mind, and we'll talk about it in more details. Okay. So we discussed Mansabdari system, we discussed Ijaradari system. Now, administrative and economic situation of the empire. I have kind of explained these points to you already, so I'll go through it one by one. I have kind of explained these things to you. So first of all, what were the major one military difficulty, and let me explain that thing here. Military difficulty, we kind of forget one of them, is understood this. When you see the map of Rajasthan like this, okay, so this area used to be called as Rajputana. Okay, Rajputana, and here was Delhi, and here was Agra. Okay, now Rajputana had Rajput leaders, rulers, okay, whether it was Marwar or Mewar or Amber. Okay, now since the time of Akbar, okay, 1560s onwards, because he came to power in 1556, but he effectively started ruling himself in 1562. Mughals maintained good relations with Rajputs, so much so that Rajputs started serving in the Mughal army. And there was a time, not only in the days of Akbar, but even Jahangir and Shah Jahan, that the main might of the Mughal Empire was because of the presence of the Rajput army with them. So the Mughal Rajput army combinedly became so powerful, okay, Mughal Rajput military combinedly became so powerful that it assured that under no circumstances no one is going to try from the northwest to attack India. And that was the main route from where all the attacks used to happen, right from the time of Alexander the Great. Okay, so since the time, till the time Rajputs were a part of Mughal army, they kind of provided the security on the western borders of India easily. Now, because of these religious practices, okay, and conservative nature of Aurangzeb, by 1670s, 1680s, even the Rajputs dissociated themselves to Aurangzeb, and Aurangzeb was far more repressive than any other Mughal ruler in the past. So they dissociated themselves from Aurangzeb. So this Mughal Rajput divide also further deteriorated the situation of Mughal military might. You have to keep this thing in mind. Now let's come to this. What was the administrative and economic situation of the empire? And we'll just go through it one by one. It's all written here. Okay, these slides will be given to you in PDF format, so you can revise it. No issues. Okay. So the Mughal Rajput relations were at the worst in the past 2 centuries. This further dwindled the situation of border security on the western borders. Okay. Then the Mughal central authority was moving more and more towards Orthodox Islam. Jizya and Tirth Yatra Mahsul was already imposed on the majority subjects in 1670s itself. I explained you under what circumstances that happened. Badshah's continuous absence from Agra and Delhi made the central nobility selfish and corrupt. I will explain this thing again, that how the nobility got into factions and all that happened. Okay. Then the resources of Mughal Empire were overstretched. And I've explained how it was overstretched. Okay, because of the excessive presence of the Mughal Empire in the Deccan. Even when the Mughals were not so much powerful that they could do certain things, but still they continued to do so. Okay, to maintain their presence in the Deccan region. Okay, the continuous presence in Deccan. Then the agriculture was no more profitable. I have explained this thing again, that how the Mughal population increased. So this created difficulty for them. And finally, the Mughal War of Succession, and this is something which I haven't discussed yet, and there's a reason for this. We'll be discussing it now. The Mughal War of Succession, which happened after the demise of Aurangzeb. So Aurangzeb passed away in 1707. Aurangzeb had 3 sons. Okay, and they started fighting among each other. So a Mughal War of Succession meant a civil war in the Mughal Empire. So already their economic power was getting depreciated. They were declining as economic power. Their allies, the Rajputs, are no more with them. And under these circumstances, the Mughal princes are going to fight among each other. Not only it will destabilize the state, destabilize the Mughal Empire, but also is going to deteriorate the economic situation of the Mughal Empire. And that is what happened. Even though Bahadur Shah first, whose actual name was Prince Muazzam, he took the title of Bahadur Shah, okay, later on, and when Bahadur Shah Zafar also came into existence in the 19th century, he was considered by historians as Bahadur Shah first. Okay, so this one, even though Bahadur Shah won this whole war of succession in next 2 years between 1707 and 1709, but still the toll, the economic toll of this war of succession was devastating, and which was going to hamper the overall growth of Mughal Empire. A lot of students and lot of people think that the invasion of Nadir Shah and Ahmad Shah Abdali were the major reasons why this all happened. Okay, why the decline of Mughal Empire? Ask anyone outside, that why Mughal Empire declined, and it was like Nadir Shah loot ke le gaya. Okay, it was the Battle of Panipat which deteriorated everything. No, it's not like that. Mughal Empire was already facing difficulties on the military level, on the economic level. That is something which boosted, which provided enough assurances to Nadir Shah in Persia, and then later on Ahmad Shah Abdali in Afghanistan, that they can even think of attacking Delhi. Okay, so the things which happened between 1680, 1690 and 1710 were the major reason for the decline. What happened in 1739, that is the invasion of Nadir Shah, and then happened in 1761, which is the third battle of Panipat, were actually the consequences. Okay, they were actually not the reason, and obviously they further added to the depreciating economic situation of the Mughal Empire. Got it? Understood? So that has to be kept in mind. This plot will be provided to you in the slide, so in the PDF format, so you can revise through it. So, but anything, all the points I have explained. Now, before moving anything, I need to give you a timeline of all the rulers of Mughal Empire. So, right from Aurangzeb to Bahadur Shah, to Jahandar Shah, to Farrukh Shah, to Muhammad Shah, Ahmad Shah Bahadur, Alamgir II, Shah Alam II, Akbar Shah II, and Bahadur Shah II. And then the Mughal Empire ended in 1858. Okay. Now 1857. Now understand this thing, that all these rulers are called as later Mughals. All these rulers are called as later Mughals. They were great Mughals. Who are the great Mughals? Babur, who came in 1526 and ruled till 1529, and I'll give you a timeline for that also. That's not here, but let me give you that. Don't want to make sure that these initial foundational ideas should be very clear. If these things are clear, rest of the things can be handled pretty easily in the long run. Okay, so initially understand this, that Babur ruled between 1526 and 1529. Okay, and after Babur, then Humayun came to power, his son. He ruled in two folds between 1530 and 1538. Then after the battle, he was removed. He has to escape and run for his life. He went to Persia. Under the reign of Shah Tehmasp, he stayed there, regained his power, came back, won first against his own brother, and then came and won the battle against the Sur Empire also. Okay, so he ruled in two parts between 1530, 1538, and then 1555 and 1556. Okay, so he came back, he won against Islam Shah, okay, the son of Sher Shah Suri. And in between that, in northern India, Sur dynasty existed, which we will be covered in detail in medieval history, so you don't have to worry. I'm just giving you a timeline, so foundation for modern will be there. Then he came back, took power on his own, but then he died. He fell from stairs, okay, of his library in Delhi, okay, the famous Sher Manzil. So he passed away, and his son Akbar came to power. Okay, his name was initially not Akbar. Akbar was a title given to him. His name was Jalaluddin Muhammad. Okay, so he ruled between 1556 and 1605. Okay, so he was only 14 when he came to power. So instead of him, actually Bairam Khan was doing all the ruling. Actually, he started ruling when he became 20 or something, by around 1562 onwards. Okay, so he ruled till 1605, and after Akbar, Jahangir. This Jahangir is the same Prince Salim who took the title of Jahangir after coming to power, after again winning a succession battle against his own son Khusro, whom Akbar wanted to be the ruler. So those things have been, this Mughal war of succession has been going on till the very starting of the 17th century. After the demise of Akbar, Mughal war of succession started. Okay, so Jahangir came to power in 1605 and ruled till 1628, and from then his son Shah Jahan came to power, and he ruled 1628 to 1658. When Shah Jahan died, then Aurangzeb came to power. I'll write it here only because there are 6 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6 I'll write here itself. Don't want to open a new slide for this. Aurangzeb. Okay, he ruled between 1658 and 1707. He ruled between 1658 and 1707. Okay. And that is all the listing of great Mughals. Okay, just by looking at their period in office, okay, their timeline, you can say, okay, they should be called great. At least every one of them ruled for like 20, 30 years, except Babur. There were certain circumstances, he died, okay. So, after this, you need to understand that once you have a basic understanding of great Mughals, then came later Mughals with the Bahadur Shah first. Now, it is not always, remember that you always, it is really not required that you know the timeline. I am a faculty, I am been doing this thing for very long. So, each and every year and everything, I remember it well enough. You don't have to, you don't need to. Okay. But all you need to have is a basic idea that it should not happen that if someone says Farrukh Shah and you will say, okay, whether he was there in 1820, no, this should not happen. You should at least be clear, okay, Farrukh Shah was there around 1710 and 1720s. That much is fine. Okay, that much idea should be there. So Bahadur Shah first came, he won against his brothers, came to power. Okay, ruled between 1710 and 1712, and then subsequently other rulers came in. We will go through each of them, but as I told you, we are not going to talk about the individual characters of these rulers. That is not our ball game. That is not related. That is not required. What is required is the policy initiatives they took. So, Bahadur Shah, what policy initiatives he took? Let's go through it. Okay. So, policy initiatives, right? What Bahadur Shah did. So, first of all, few things about Bahadur Shah. Bahadur Shah was already 65-year-old when he came to power. Was but natural to happen. Need to understand, Aurangzeb came to power when in his 40s. He ruled for 50 years. He died when he was 89 or 90, something like that. Okay. But when you are going to die at the age of 90, but natural, your son who is going to take over is going to be in his 60s. You see right now, Queen Elizabeth, okay, Elizabeth II, she is somewhere around 95, 96. Charles in his 70s right now. Okay, Charles must be 71, 72, something like that. Okay, and he is going to be the next king of Britain. Now, UK. Now, understand this, when the elder crown is, the crown is the hand of someone pretty elderly, this is going to happen. And this is what happened with Bahadur Shah. So, Bahadur Shah came to power at the age of 65, first of all. And this is very important. This, I will tell you why I am telling you his age when he came to power. I am not some ageist or something, but it is required to be understood that he came to power when he was 65. Now, after coming to power, then he went into a succession battle with 2 of his brothers, and that went on for another 2 years, between 1707 and 1709. Okay, he declared himself to be the king, but 2 of his other brothers also declared themselves to be the king. The succession battle went for 2 years, and finally he was able to assert his power on whole of Mughal Empire only in 1709. So this war of succession further took a toll on him and also took a lot of toll on the economy of the Mughal Empire. Now finally when he came to Delhi, he was like, okay fine, what needs to be done here? So he realized that Rajputs are creating a bit of a problem. So yeah, many of the books directly writes that Bahadur Shah maintained neutral relations with everyone except the Sikh. No, this is wrong. Bahadur Shah came to Delhi. Initially, he had a plan to take over the Rajputana region in totality. What Aurangzeb was not able to do, he wanted to do that thing. But when he started, he moved his forces towards Nagaur. He realized it very soon that this will be impossible. Because whether it's Udaipur or Amber, Jaipur was not there back then. Whether it is Udaipur or, whether it is Jodhpur or Amber, the Rajput rulers over there are not that fickle that they will lose easily. So then he decided that it will be good if he maintains neutrality with them. So he signed kind of he made a neutrality understanding with these rulers, okay, with the Rajputs. So that's here. After a failed attempt to take over Rajputana, he reached an understanding with the Ambar and Marwar, that is Jodhpur. Now, first problem, kind of a Western issue is resolved. Then the second issue, the second big issue was the relations with the Marathas. Relations with the Marathas. Now, when we are talking about the relations with the Marathas, one need to understand, this is again very important, very interesting. What it is the fact that Aurangzeb continued to fight Marathas between 1600 and 1680 until he was alive in 1707. Now, he passed away and Bahadur Shah first understood it very well that look, this economic resources which have gone, Papa ne jo kiya hai, okay, that is going to affect us very bad in the long run. So he thought that something has to, resolution has to be reached for this. So what immediately he did? He remembered that they already have the son of Sambhaji. I told you na, in 1689 when Sambhaji was hanged, his son Sambhaji was hanged. Sambhaji was son of Shivaji and Sambhaji was hanged. But his son and his wife were taken as Mughal prisoner. Now Sahu, who is Sambhaji's son, was there in Mughal prison till 1707. So what he did? At this time, Maratha Empire was being ruled by the other family of Shivaji. So Shivaji had a other family, he had a other wife, and from that family, okay, Raja Ram came, okay, Raja Ram, who ruled the Marathas between 1700 and 1707. No, he ruled between 1700 and 1700, 1690 and 1700. Okay, he ruled between 1690 and 1700. Now, after the demise of Raja Ram, his son was very small. Okay, he was a small kid. So, his son was declared the Chhatrapati, okay, the ruler of Maratha Empire. Okay, and Raja Ram's widow, okay, Tarabai, started ruling, handling the affairs of the state. Okay, and she was handling the affairs of the state even in the 1707. So at this times, Bahadur Shah had this plan that if we will release Sahu, being the son of Sambhaji, Sahu will immediately ask for handling over the powers. Sahu will immediately ask that, okay, no, I should be the authority here. Why Tarabai, why you are handling? And this will create a civil war situation in the Maratha empires. If the Marathas will be fighting among themselves, they will not have enough resources left to fight the Mughals, and that is the easiest way how the Mughal resources can be reverted back to the Mughal empire and can be reduced in the Deccan region while maintaining the control in Deccan. And so he did that. He released Sahu and allowed him to go back. Sahu went back to Maratha empire, and exactly what happened, exactly the same thing happened which Bahadur Shah expected, that a civil war situation arose in Maratha Empire. Now, what happened in Maratha Empire? How the issue between Sahu and Tarabai was resolved? What happened? What was the role of Peshwas there? Those things will be discussing while discussing the Maratha Empire, and that is a part of the syllabus only. So they will be coming to this. But while discussing the policy initiatives of Bahadur Shah, we need to understand that what initiatives he took when it came to handling the issue of the Marathas. Okay, so he took his initiative to create a succession crisis in the Maratha Empire. Now, after this, when came to resolve the issue of the Sikh community, now that's where he took a more violent and direct action. Okay, so what really happened is, there was a province, okay, in Sirhind, okay, which is basically in Haryana, Yamunanagar now, right now, which was a Mughal province, and since the Mughal, after the demise of Aurangzeb, since the Mughal princes were involved in civil war situation of fighting among each other, the Mughals under the Sikh community under the leadership of Baba Banda Singh Bahadur, they took the initiative, took over the Suba of Sirhind, and declared the main city of Sirhind to be Lohgarh, and declared it to be the capital of Sikh Empire, which was then called as the first Sikh Empire, and they started ruling from there. So when in 1709 Bahadur Shah reached Delhi, he understood, ye kya? What is this? Next to us, how the hell a new empire can be built up? So everything else was handled through diplomacy or through the cunning politics. But when it came to a Sikh community who had established, not only established a new empire very close to Delhi, but they also started minting their own coins, Khalsa coins, and they started even having a new revenues model called as Fasaldari system. Okay, under these circumstances, Bahadur Shah led the armed forces himself and they entered Lohgarh. Now, when they entered the fort of Lohgarh, that happened in 1710, Banda Singh Bahadur and rest of his followers have to escape. They went into hiding. They started doing a guerrilla warfare. Later on, in 1715, Banda Singh Bahadur, Baba Banda Singh Bahadur was arrested, was brought to Delhi, and after keeping in jail for over a year, he was killed in front of Red Fort. Those things happened. That will be again discussed while discussing the first Sikh Empire and the second Sikh Empire. So while we discussing the Sikh, what was the faith of the Sikh community in the 18th century, we will discuss that section. Here on the policy initiative, again, what was done by him? So this was done by him. Okay. Now, this was the political initiative, political things he did. Now let's discuss about the economic section. Now, when he came to power, already the economic situation of the Mughal Empire was not very good. It was a bit dwindling. It was a bit dwindling. Okay, because of the over expenses of Aurangzeb. Now, when he came to power, his doings are even more interesting. Okay, because first of all, he went into a civil war situation that is going to take a lot of money. And therefore, when he passed away in 1712, because of natural causes, he was already old. When he passed away in 1712, the Mughal Toshkhana, okay, was also exhausted and there was lesser than 1 crore rupee. Now understand, when he came to power, there was 13 crore rupees in the Mughal treasury, and when he died, there was less than 1 crore rupee. And this will be very important the very next year, because after this we'll talk about that how Mughals imposed the Ijaradari system, the difficult revenue collecting model I just explained few minutes back in this lecture only. So Mughals used it after this. Okay, and that is something you need to understand. Okay, so this 1 crore thing will happen, will create such circumstances that Mughals will have to issue order to implement Ijaradari system. It will have a very large term impact. Okay, this is where the whole agricultural revenue system of India started declining. The main problems our peasantry, our farming community faces even in the 21st century has some of the foundational issues in the Ijaradari system. Okay, the exploitations by the zamindar of the farmer, it's all start with the Ijaradari system, and that all happened because of this situation, the economic situation in 1712. Okay, so I hope you understood about the Mughal Badshah, first later Mughal ruler Bahadur Shah first. Okay, now understand this thing, that these are very peculiar thing you need to know. You don't have to go and start reading about Bahadur Shah's personal affairs. You don't have to read about that Bahadur Shah was doing before in 1680s, 1690s. Students do these things. Don't do it. That's not needed. All you need to know is the policy initiatives he took, and that have been taught to you. Nothing beyond this is going to be asked in the examination, and nothing beyond this is actually essential for you. For your personal fun, if you want to read about Bahadur Shah, read about Aurangzeb. He's much more nice, interesting character. Okay, he used to play sitar also at a time. He also knew how to read and write Sanskrit at a time, and then he went to extreme conservative ideas instead of the multicultural idea which he initially followed. So people are there, but don't get involved into going into too deep understanding. That will not be useful for you. That will be futile. Just remember the things I am telling you here, and your work will be done. Okay, that's the whole thing. We'll move next on Jahandar Shah. Okay, Jahandar Shah, who ruled between 1712 and 1713. Okay, and will just for 1 year, and the things which happened during this small period which is again going to have a long term impact. So till now we have discussed about the disintegration, and we have talked about that what were the basic differences between the great Mughals, okay, and later Mughals, okay, later Mughals. And we have just started the later Mughals in this lecture, so I hope this was understandable. Okay, in next lecture we will start with Jahandar Shah, who is the second among the later Mughals, and we will proceed from here. Okay, so thanks for attending the session. Let's catch up in the next lecture. Thank you.